Welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a few weeks. I'll talk about that in just a second since I've had an upload, but we're so glad you're here, and by we I mean me today. My cameraman Busy is busy. We've got a lot of projects that we're working on, so I am actually recording back in my office by myself because it's hot outside and things are just going crazy. So this video that we're going to go over, this series if you will, we actually recorded it initially about 4 weeks ago. So that's kind of why there's been a gap, because I wanted to take a look at something that is really popular right now, and that's going to be, putting red dots on compact pistols. They've been on, full size and carry guns, but with like the Springfield Hellcat, the SIG 365, now we've got everybody's coming out with a micro compact that has more than 12 rounds in it, it seems. So red dots are becoming more ubiquitous, but they're getting smaller and smaller and smaller to fit on these packages. So I wanted to go over a few different options that are out there, why you would even want to have that, and compare and contrast a few different dots. Now, we made a video and it was 35 minutes long. And after recording it, I was like, this is not good. Some of the footage that we shot, it was raining outside. My van got stuck in the mud. We could barely walk around without getting, caked on, mud everywhere. So needless to say, the conditions were subpar and the video wasn't very good. So I just said, scratch it. I'm gonna have to do it again and create a series, if you will, on a few different red dots for, compact pistols, and really just kind of review a few of the options one at a time, and then at the very end say which one I would pick. I think during the actual, series of videos, you'll kind of get an idea of which one I'm going to choose, because it actually surprised me. But we're going to go over a few. So the first one's the HEX Wasp from Springfield Armory. Next video coming up will be on the Holosun 507K X2. I don't know what the X1 was. And then finally, the Trijicon RMSc. So we'll cover these in two separate videos and then compare them at the end. But first, we're going to kick off with the HEX Wasp by Springfield Armory, or they call it HEX Optics. So I've got this Wasp here mounted on one of the Hellcat RDPs, which I forgot what the acronym stands for. I cannot stand gun industry acronyms, so it's like the Rapid Defense Pistol or Package. I think that's what it is, Rapid Defense Package. So the Springfield Armory, the HEX Wasp, is their entry into, red dot optics on pistols. I'm going to compare this. I'm actually going to, as I'm talking about this specific dot, the HEX Wasp, I may use the term RMSc, so I might actually refer to a Shield RMSc, which is another dot that fits on the same footprint. And the reason is, in my mind, they're the same dot. So they share a lot of the same features. They're almost identical in the same size, same footprint. The dot reacts the same. So I don't know this for certain, but I'm pretty sure that the HEX Wasp is a repackaged Shield RMSc, because to me, they're identical except for a couple of aesthetic features on them. So getting into it, this is a micro dot, or a dot for compact pistols, and it fits on the Shield RMSc footprint. So the first thing to consider when you're looking at getting a red dot on your gun is your gun cut for a red dot? And more you're gonna see compact pistols with optic cuts on them. But the optic cuts aren't universal, and this is another thing the gun industry is renowned for, is having everything be proprietary. Proprietary magazines, obviously, but proprietary red dot cuts to kind of keep people in your, in a certain sandbox, or keep your customers purchasing from you. And really the most universal right now cut for compact pistols, for pistols that are too narrow to accept a full-size dot, is going to be the Shield RMSc, or the Shield footprint. They came up with their own footprint. So I actually have a list. I'm going to look down at my computer and read off the dots that this footprint supports. So the Shield RMS, RMSc, and RMSW, and SMS. Also, if you get the Sig Sauer Romeo 0, same footprint. The Loophole Delta Point Pro, which is the Shield standard. I actually don't know if I'm going to confirm that, but this is on a website. I don't think that's right, but maybe it is. I've never actually had a DPP. JP Enterprises J-Point, Swamp Fox Sentinel, and the Vortex Optic Frenzy. I've actually never seen one of those. And then now the HEX Wasp all use the same footprint. So if you get a SIG 365 that's milled for the Romeo Zero, you can use the SIG Romeo Zero, or you can use a Shield RMSc, or you can use the HEX Wasp. All fit onto the same footprint that would be on that, or on your Hellcat, or any other pistol that's cut for that RMSc. In fact, I had a what's that Israeli company? Hang on, Bull Armory. So I used to have, and I don't get them anymore, but I used to get a lot of Bull Armories coming through. I was able to purchase them at wholesale and sell them, and they cut me off because the market got crazy and they wanted to sell more stuff direct and make more money. I don't fault them for that, but it was kind of crappy. Anyway, I had one that had the Shield RMSc on it, so I do have some experience behind the RMSc. So if you have one of those Bulls that is, milled for the RMSc or has it on it and you want to switch it, you could switch it to the HEX Wasp, but there's really no reason to, because I think it's the same exact dot. So getting into the details, I'll read off all the stuff on the website first, and I'll give you my opinion. The dot is a 3.5 MOA red dot. They claim a 2-year runtime. I've only had this gun now for, I don't know, maybe 6 months. I don't remember when I got it, and obviously the dot's still working, so, I can't verify that. It says it's IPX7 waterproof. I don't get wet super often, but, it's nice to have. And then other stuff, brightness adjustment, it's auto dimming. They say it's a parallax-free lens, which, I don't know, I thought that most dots, most single objective lenses would be parallax-free. There might be distortion, but I just don't see there being a lot of ability for parallax in a single lens red dot. But there it is, magnification 1x, always on. And then an MSRP of $299. Shield RMSCs, the MSRP for those is going to be, I think, in like the $400 range. Typically, I see them selling for $300, and yeah. So I mean, if you're looking for a less expensive option, or a budget red dot, I know the Swamp Fox is supposed to be less expensive, and there are some others out there. But if you want to know all the options, go to Sage Dynamics. He's a red dot expert. I'm just talking about this right here. So the HEX Wasp, getting into it, my experience with it, it is an acceptable dot. Okay, it's an acceptable dot for your gun, especially for a compact gun, because it's the lens is not super big, so you don't have a gigantic field of view like you would on an SRO or even a standard size RMR, because it's more compact. But it does seem to have even more of a little bit of a tunnel vision than some of the other compact options that I've had out there. But it is acceptable, especially when you're considering, this compact gun. What's your engagement distance? You're not going to be really trying to shoot this gun at 50 yards. You could, but it's just not really what the purpose is. It's compact. It's something that I carry when I'm in my gym shorts, when I go running. This is the gun that I carry when I go running in a fanny pack, American flag fanny pack. Thought it was somewhere around here, but it's not. So this does go in my fanny pack when I go running. So it's compact, but it is enough for being able to reach out and see at those, closer engagement distances. So I have no problem picking up the dot and actually seeing the target in anything at or below 25 yards, the quick target acquisition. So red dot, very good there. So the positives, universal mounting. So to have a dot that you don't have to go get your gun milled for if it's accepting a dot, the Shield RMSc, footprint is the most universal at this point. I think we'll see some things change in the future. I could say, I hope we'll see some things change in the future to where there's a little more universality, but it's going to take a little while before that happens. So if you don't want to get your gun milled and it accepts a Shield RMSc, which is the most universal, the HEX Wasp or the Shield RMSc will fit on there. Auto dimming. Now I'm going to put this in the positive and the negative category. So it's auto dimming in that when you go outside, it's going to brighten up when you have some extra light, and then when you go inside, it's going to dim. Now, there's a problem because there's only 2 brightness settings on it. And for example, in here, I am in the shade. So I'm inside, but there's a window behind the camera there. And trying to pick up the dot when you're in the shade, but your target is outside or it's not in the shade, the dot is dim, so I can't really see it quite as well looking out into brightness. So if you're in the shade and your dot dims, picking up your target when it's bright, that might be a problem. Also, the 2 settings are never just right. So it's either too bright or too dim. It's never like a just right scenario. So the auto dimming feature, while cool, just having 2 settings doesn't seem to be enough. So I would have rather had manual adjustments or more auto dimming stages on the HEX Wasp or the Shield RMSc. Plus battery life, 65,000 hours, 2 years. That's great, and you're going to want that battery life because of one of the other negatives I'll talk about in a second. Backup irons built in, so it does have backup rear irons built in, a notch so that you can co-witness with a front sight post. And then if you don't have backup sights, it's such a small package that typically you will still be able to have your backup sights, but you could co-witness. Now here on the Hellcat RDP, it already has sights on it, which are the standard height, and it is a narrow enough package that you can still, co-witness in the lower part of the window with the stock sights. But having those on there is nice. If you were to go mill a slide for this optic, you are going to want to verify that the notch is at the same level as the notch on the sights that you've removed. If you're removing your sights, like you need to have a really, you've got a really compact gun and you're putting this on there and you're going to be using this notch as your backup sight or your backup rear irons. Because if this is lower, which I can see here on the RDP, if these sights were taken off, this rear sight is lower. So the relationship from the rear sight to the front sight is going to cant it off. So that means I'm always going to be shooting low if I had to rely on the standard front sight that are backup. So, if my dot went down and I didn't have the rear sight and I used the notch on the shield or the hex, it's not going to work out. If I'm at 25 yards, depending on the difference of this angle, I could be shooting in the dirt at that distance. So you do have to do some maths to figure that out when you get a gun milled for a sight that has backup irons built in. But the nice thing about the HEX Wasp and the Shield RMSc is they're small enough that it's typically easy to be able to still co-witness with the stock sights or, put some different sights on it. And last step, I'm going to say it's sturdy. So this is an aluminum housing. It's got a lot of angles on it. They actually put some serrations on the back, I guess to, counteract glare. I'm not quite sure, but that seems to be why people, put serrations on the back of things is for glare. I don't have an issue with it. So it does seem sturdy though. This actually, the HEX Wasp seems sturdier than the Shield RMSc. So between the 2, I would choose the Wasp over the Shield. But yeah, it is sturdy. Now, getting into some other negatives, I already talked about the auto dimming feature not having enough variation for different lighting conditions. Also, the dot flickers. So the refresh rate, red dots aren't always on. They're always, they're flickering, but the refresh rate needs to be over some frames per second or so many cycles per second for your eye not to see it. Well, the Shield has this problem, and the HEX has the same problem to where the refresh rate is like almost right where our eyes refresh and we can see motion. So when I'm looking through this dot, it flickers. So I can actually, it's not a solid dot, it has some flicker to it, and when you're moving, that's really a problem. So if it's a stationary target and you're just shooting inside and you're not moving your hands, no problem. Once you have any target transitions, or you have to, find a moving target, that flickering becomes like a strobe light, and you do notice that the dot tends to skip. So the refresh rate definitely could be higher. Now, getting into a couple other things, the battery, you do have to remove the dot from your gun like you would on, a Trijicon RMR to change the battery. Now, 2-year battery life, you're only gonna have to do it every 2 years. But once you put the dot back on, you've put new Loctite, you've retorqued these screws down to the proper manufacturer specs, you are going to want to re-zero it, and that comes into the next negative, which is the zero adjustment. So it says on the website it has 0.5 MOA adjustments, which doesn't quite make sense because there's no tactile clicks, and it's the exact same thing on the Shield RMSc, which, like I said, leads me to believe they're the same dot in different packages. What you get is a sundial-like thing that you put over the adjustments. You put a little Allen wrench in there, and then each degree on this little sundial deal, which just fell off, is supposed to be adjustment. So does anybody even use these? Probably not. It makes it difficult to go up to your target if you're doing a 25-yard zero and you've got a 1-inch grid on there with tactile clicks. You can do your math and figure out how many clicks it is to get your dot, to get your holes, your bullets to be going exactly where you want, and move that dot. Whereas this is more Kentucky windage. It's like, all right, I did, like a 1/8 of a turn to get there. So zeroing takes a little bit longer than it would on a gun with tactile clicks on the windage and elevation adjustment. And then last thing is, on the negative side, is the price. Now, $300 is not super expensive for a red dot, especially a compact red dot. But when you're starting to look at some of the other options out there, like obviously the RMRcc is going to be above that. But when we get into stuff from HoloSun, you're actually seeing them in the market at a price lower than what you're going to see the HEX Wasp, and in a lot of cases the Shield RMSc. So the pricing on it is a little bit higher than what I'd like to see for the quality that's there. But overall impressions, it is perfectly acceptable, even with those negatives, as a dot for concealed carry. It's obviously not something that I'd want to use for duty. Not that I do duty, I'm just a gun guy and a LARPer. But yeah, so it's not really a duty rated dot, but it's perfectly acceptable for light usage, concealed carry, and the like. So HEX Wasp, Shield RMSc, this is one option that's out there. It's going to be most likely the easiest option. So if you're looking for quick and easy, this is going to be the one to go to. But if you're looking for more durability, we've got a couple other options coming down. So HEX Wasp, Shield RMSc.